of things that you've already talked about have also shown up. Um, is there a way to stop misinformation spread by the government? So we've talked that government does lots of conferences and awareness campaigns, but what is the way that the government can do and stop its spread without curbing or banning or things? Humaira, would you like to answer this?
Well, I think Sadaf dissected everything pretty well. The government has first, in terms of regulation, when we have a law, for example, whether it's to protect citizens from online harm or Pakistan Electronic Crime Act, these acts, if they are, you have to see who is implementing that act. Which authority, under which authority? Is it FIA, is it NACTA, looking at the hate speech, or the Provincial Home Department? So you have to see the capacity to understand the content. So as far as the regulation side is, government is happy to pass legislation, which some organizations may not be happy with because of the way the law may be used or abused. And we have seen more abuse than the use of the law in this country. I'm not speaking on behalf of government. I'm attending this conference or webinar in my personal capacity. The other thing is that the government has to bring out the facts openly and have an opinion, or not the opinion, but must consult the doctor and the scientific community when it comes to giving out information on COVID-19, rather than having political views or do the political point scoring, which is not going to affect, which is not going to have a positive impact on the health of the population. So it's better to do justice when it comes to COVID-19, and they have to give the true picture to the people and not give multiple opinions and conflicting views on COVID-19. And surprisingly, though we are a nation which is not very the spread of COVID is lower, as we have seen in Europe and in United States. It's not as bad. I've seen multiple people recovering within 3 to 4 days and having a fever. So I think that has also added to the feeling that COVID is not affecting Pakistanis as much as it is affecting rest of the world. So, so it sometimes justifies the position that the Prime Minister might have taken. So the people get very casual. I'm in the north. I'm in Atoshisha right now. So I see people going and praying in the mosque. So if I tell them, Uncle, why aren't you wearing a mask? And he says, no, it's not going to affect us. That's the simple answer.
Thank you.
So what government can do is on the regulation side and holding media conferences, but as Sadaf has already deliberated on how these media conferences are held, I don't see.
My second, thank you, Humaira. So my second question, the same question that your second panelist, Sadaf, quickly, if you could tell, what are those concrete steps that the government should take to curb the spread of such fake news?
So in terms of concrete spread, I think the first thing should be for the government to sit down and put in writing what they want to say. There has to be consistency in messaging. And it's really basic. Like, we are a very small organization. We are like 5 years old. But when we go out on a campaign and when we have to say something, we have a style guide, we have the key messages, and that's how even small organizations operate. So imagine a situation that's as critical as COVID. It's a pandemic. It has got the world on its knees, and there is nothing consistent about the messages that are being put forward. So in terms of bringing in country, a policy, communications policy, what are you going to say? How are you going to say it? Appointment of people who are authorized to speak on this issue. So whenever there's something sensitive, the government always, like, if it was an issue of security, a national security, for example, we will know who's authorized to talk to the media and who's not. But in COVID, we don't see the same seriousness. So what are you going to say? How are you going to say it? If there is confusion, and obviously it's a developing story, then how are you going to address it so that it translates, it's communicated to the public without giving an impression that the government itself doesn't know what it's doing. So on one side there is this. On the second side, obviously this is something on which you need to have multiple information sources. So like having small consultations with different civil society sectors, with technology, with Facebook, for example. I know the government is working very closely with Facebook, but who is dictating that agenda? Who is dictating how that should be operationalized? Is the government itself right now aware enough to operationalize that agenda? अगर आप UN पे देखें, there's the internet and digital technologies. Basically, the governance is discussed at the internet governance forums every year. And there, for the last 10 years, multi-stakeholderism within internet governance has been the key agenda, which means a different kind of legislation where only the government doesn't take power, but the technology companies, the private sector, the civil society, the academia, and the technology companies themselves, your corporates and global corporates, they all come together and try to find a cohesive solution. This is the approach that's largely missing. So moving towards that approach, including different kinds of experts in the narrative, and then building a narrative that is cohesive, coherent, true, but not misleading.
Fair
I
enough.
think that's
So coming with a strategy, don't go just without any strategy. Coming with a strategy is the solution you're proposing.